How I built a rental portfolio without ever missing a day of work. That is exactly what this video is about, and I want to be upfront with you from the start. This is not a story about quitting your job, going all in, or betting everything on real estate. I was sitting in a staff meeting, the kind where someone has printed an agenda that nobody actually follows, and I was running numbers on a potential rental property on my phone under the table. Not because I was bored, because I genuinely did not know if I could pull off building a real estate portfolio while keeping the job that paid my mortgage, funded my lifestyle, and provided the health insurance my family depended on. I didn't have a safety net. I didn't have a rich uncle. I had a W-2, a decent savings rate, and a growing suspicion that the traditional retirement path was going to take way too long. That was the beginning. And today I want to walk you through exactly how I built a rental property portfolio without ever once calling in sick to close a deal, without my employer ever finding out, and without sacrificing the job performance that kept my income and therefore my entire investing engine running. Because here is what the YouTube real estate world almost never acknowledges: your W-2 job is not the obstacle, it is the foundation. And the investors who figure that out early are the ones who actually build something. The first thing I had to get completely straight in my own head was the difference between active time and passive income infrastructure. Most people assume that owning rental property means becoming a landlord in the traditional sense, fielding calls at midnight about broken toilets, driving across town to show units, personally collecting rent checks. If that is your model, then yes, a full-time job makes real estate nearly impossible. But that is not the model that works for W-2 investors. The model that works is this: you spend focused, intentional time up front, building systems, and those systems run the asset while you are at your desk. The property manager handles tenants, the contractor handles repairs, the agent handles acquisitions. Your job is to make the capital allocation decisions and review the monthly statements. That is a role that fits comfortably inside evenings and weekends without touching a single work hour. Let me be specific about what the actual time commitment looked like for me in the acquisition phase, because this is where most people either overestimate or completely underestimate the workload. During the active search period for my first property, I was spending roughly 5 to 7 hours per week. 2 hours analyzing deals on Zillow and Redfin, running numbers through my expense spreadsheet, filtering out anything that didn't clear my cash-on-cash threshold. 1 to 2 hours on the phone or over email with my out-of-state agent, who was sending me properties that matched my criteria. 1 hour reviewing market data, vacancy rates, rent trends, employment numbers in my target metro. And maybe 1 more hour reading, listening to podcasts, and continuing to sharpen the analytical framework. 5 to 7 hours a week, that is less time than most people spend scrolling. And critically, none of it happened between 9 and 5 on weekdays. The key infrastructure decision I made before I ever put in an offer was hiring a property manager before I needed one. I interviewed 3 property management companies in Indianapolis before I owned a single property there. I asked each of them the same 7 questions. What is your average vacancy rate across your portfolio? How do you screen tenants? And what is your eviction rate? What is your maintenance markup, and do you have in-house contractors or subcontract everything? How do you handle capex decisions above a certain dollar threshold? Do you call me or act unilaterally? What does your monthly reporting look like, and how do I access it? What is your fee structure, and are there any charges beyond the monthly percentage? And finally, can I speak with 2 current landlord clients as references? The company I hired answered every question with specificity and without hesitation. The other 2 got vague on fee structures and couldn't produce references quickly. That interview process took 1 Saturday morning. It saved me years of operational headaches. Here is the other thing about your W-2 that most people treat as a limitation, but is actually your single greatest investing asset: income stability. When you go to a lender and apply for a conventional mortgage on an investment property, they are looking at 2 things above almost everything else: debt to income ratio and income consistency. A W-2 with 2 years of employment history at a stable company is about the cleanest lending profile that exists. Self-employed investors, 1,099 contractors, entrepreneurs, they frequently struggle to qualify for financing because their income looks irregular on paper even when they're making more money than you are. Your steady paycheck makes you an extremely attractive borrower, which means better interest rates, easier qualification, and access to conventional loan products that require as little as 15 to 20% down on an investment property. The very thing you think is holding you back is actually opening doors that are closed to a lot of the people you're watching on YouTube. Now, let me walk you through the timeline of how the first acquisition actually happened without disrupting my work life at all. I spent about 6 weeks in research mode evenings and weekends only before I felt confident enough in my target market to start making offers. Week 1 and 2 picked Indianapolis as my market based on job growth data, population trends, and price to rent ratio. Week 3, interviewed and hired my property manager and my investor-friendly local agent. Week 4 and 5, reviewed 43 properties that my agent sent, ran full expense analysis on 11 of them, identified 3 worth pursuing. Week 6, made offers on 2 properties simultaneously. 1 offer was rejected. 1 was accepted at $8,000 below asking price, with the seller covering 1 discount point on my rate as a concession. From accepted offer to closing took 26 days. During those 26 days, the most time-intensive tasks were reviewing the inspection report, which I did on a lunch break, and coordinating with my lender on paperwork, which happened almost entirely over email after business hours. I signed closing documents digitally. I never took a single day off work. I never had to explain anything to my employer. The entire transaction was invisible to my professional life, which is exactly how it should be. The property was tenant occupied within 18 days of closing, handled entirely by my property manager. My first rent deposit hit my account on the 1st of the following month, and I was sitting in a staff meeting when it happened. The second and third acquisitions followed the same system, and each one took less time than the previous because the infrastructure was already in place. The agent knew my criteria. The property manager was already set up. The lender had my file. By the third property, the active search to close process took about 3 weeks of part-time attention. The portfolio compounds faster than the effort does, which is the exact opposite of what most people assume. There is one more thing I want to address directly because I hear it constantly from W2 investors who are on the fence. The concern goes like this: what if something goes wrong with the property and I have to deal with it during work hours? It is a reasonable concern, and the honest answer is that emergencies do occasionally happen. A pipe bursts on a Tuesday morning. A tenant locks themselves out on a Thursday afternoon. Here is how I handle it. My property manager is my first and only point of contact for anything operational. They have explicit authority to approve repairs up to $1,000 without calling me. For anything above that, they send me a text or email with a brief summary and a recommended course of action. I respond when I can, usually within a few hours, and they handle execution.
In 3 years of owning rental property, I have never once had to step away from a work commitment to handle a property issue. Not once. The system absorbs the noise, so you don't have to. Your W-2 is not a cage. It is a launchpad. The salary funds, the down payments. The income stability unlocks the financing. The job security gives you the risk tolerance to make analytical, unemotional investment decisions because you are not desperate for the deal to work out. The investors who burn their boats, quit their jobs, and go all in on real estate before they have the cash flow to support it are taking on risk that is completely unnecessary. Build the portfolio while you have the paycheck. Scale until the rental income is large enough to make the choice between staying and leaving a genuine choice rather than a forced one. That is financial freedom, not the dramatic version, but the real version. If you are a W-2 employee who has been telling yourself that you need to wait until you have more time, more money, or more certainty before you start, this video is your sign that none of those things are actually the constraint. The constraint is starting. Everything else is solvable with the right system, the right team, and 5 to 7 hours a week of focused work. In the next video, I am breaking down the exact numbers behind retiring early with just 3 rental properties, what the cash flow looks like, how the mortgage paydown accelerates your net worth, and why most people dramatically overestimate how many properties they actually need to replace a W-2 income. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And drop a comment below telling me one thing about your current job or schedule that you think makes real estate investing harder for you. I will reply to every single one with a specific, honest answer. See you in the next one.